In traditional sports like football, the players generally don't get any of the prize money, and the organisations and the clubs take all of it. Whereas in esports, that can often be the complete opposite way around, where the players take the vast majority of prize money, if not all of it sometimes. And I'm going to discuss today why that is that fair, and what should be going forward, and just understanding how prize money works within the esports world. So, why is that the case? Well, historically, players wouldn't get enough salary to afford to do it full time in esports. So they'd be on a very small wage, if none at all, especially back in the day, 20 years ago when I used to play esports and CS competitively. Not many people, if any, were getting a salary. So at that point, you need prize money to justify to be able to put more time into it, to be able to make a living from it, to do all sorts of things there. Whereas nowadays, a lot of teams are making a full-time wage, yet still getting all the prize money, and it seems a hangover from the old days. But let's talk about why can be a good thing, and also what needs to change, and in my opinion, what the differing things should be now in contracts. I'm going to mainly use Counter-Strike as an example, as I know that industry really well for prize money, and some of the differing factors and the complexity of the contracts could be going forward. So in a contract, usually there's a number of costs that a kind of organisation will have. And to be honest with you, when you're evaluating what prize money percentage should be, you need to actually take all of these things into account. So you've got, in a player's contract, you'll have salary, as an example. You'll have prize money share. You might have digital item share. Sometimes you get some, sometimes you won't. Digital item share. You'll have costs such as boot camps. You'll have other costs such as, well, salary can also include staff like sports psychologists and other things like that. So, difficulty for an esports organisation or organisation in general is this cost here is, so let's take a look at this. This cost and this cost are costs which are upfront kind of overheads. And it's not an overhead bootcamp, but you generally, if you commit to it, you have to do it. So they're upfront overheads, which you can't, it's really hard to track an ROI on. It's hard to say with a salary that I'm definitely going to get a return. Sometimes there could be a lag. You could also have bonuses in here. Sorry, I forgot to add. You could have bonuses. So if a team got to top 30 in the world, you might get a bonus for that, for example, which again is an overhead in some ways, because let's say a team gets to top 30 in the world in Counter-Strike, that doesn't mean that you instantly make more money as a company. We had this issue a lot of times at Endpoint when we made top 30 in the world and the salaries all went up, but actually it was a lag for us to try and get sponsorships, and it didn't really equate to making more money or not. So that was actually a really hard thing. So these are overheads, whereas actually prize money, one of the benefits I'm going to say for an organisation to give away a large prize money compared to salary is that actually it's a cost of sale. So these ones, this one, cost of sale, and also cost of sale. And the benefit of having cost of sale as a business model is that if you say get £1,000 through the door or £10,000 through the door, let's say prize money came in of 10k, and let's say that the player takes 80% of the prize money for that, the organisation pays out 8k and keeps 2k profit. So benefit of that is they've got the money and they've kept money, okay? Whereas for salaries, you might be paying out, say, £20,000 a month of salaries for a top team, or for a tier 2 team in Counter-Strike maybe, and that's 10 or 20k regardless of how you do on the pitch. You could also do really badly and you still pay out a large salary. So these things can work. Digital item share, again, in Counter-Strike, you could make, let's say, 500k, and it just comes through the door all of a sudden. You might pay some of that money out. Let's say 100k goes to the players or something, and you go, cool, I made money, 400k. And actually, this needs to be a large amount because it needs to offset the salary. And also in games like Counter-Strike, you get individual sticker money, so they'll usually take 100% of that as well. So it's not like they don't benefit from making the major. So you've got these kind of revenue things of why prize money is set. So you have to figure out what the salary is. The higher the salary, the more prize money cut you can take. The lower the salary, the less you can take, depending on the skill level. So there's a big thing about esports organisations not really being profitable. And I think that this 80% share that often is the thing that is standard in the industry needs to move to about 50% to have a better chance of esports organisations being profitable. That being said, it's still so hard to kind of weigh up how much you actually make from prize money and actually project that that's not necessarily the best thing to happen. Really, salaries need to come down, but then the issue is if they come down too much, players won't be able to perform, they won't be able to actually put the effort in, and then they're, versus cheaper countries where it's cheaper to live, they will generally, you see them progressing further than the first world countries that are quite expensive, like America and the UK to live in, and the Nordics and so on. And I think you've seen that already in a number of games like Counter-Strike. Okay, so diving deeper into Counter-Strike examples for contracts, I think there's 4 methods to what prize money should now be. This has changed over the years, but I want to take 4 different types of events and how prize money should then be distributed out. So we have online events. We've got, I'm going to say, funded LAN events. I'm going to say non-funded LAN events. And then also ones that have got a club share. This is quite a new concept for esports, and Counter-Strike especially has got it, but also there are some other ones that have kind of broadcast rights, other ones like that in different games, which is good to see coming because that's something that's lacked in the esports industry. So if we take an online event that's pretty free to enter, most of them, I would say that prize money for players could be higher. So maybe here we're looking at kind of like 75 to 80%. Realistically, this also depends on all these factors, and maybe this should be actually still be able to get this to 50%, but then you have to be paying a decent salary. So a funded LAN could also potentially be the same. So on a funded LAN, you can see the same amount of prize money going out to this is the player share. I'll reiterate this by writing that down, players share. Because there's no outlay for the organization to go to these LANs, so the prize money can go mostly to the players. Non-funded LAN, the issue now you have with Counter-Strike is you get these VRS points, it's called Valve Ranking System. And there's a lot of these local LANs popping up, and they're really good for points. So I've seen teams go to these local LANs that can cost anywhere from 2 or 3K at the lowest to 20K, I heard a team paid the other day to get to a LAN. So at that point, when it costs you 20K to get to a LAN, how do you get a return on investment on that? Obviously, they're paying that to try and make the digital prize money, which could be really good here. But if they don't do well, that can actually be negative for them as well. So let's take an example of the prize money. So prize money might be, I don't know, £20,000 to get to this event, okay? And you cost them 20K to get there, or let's even say 10K to get there. So let's say cost is 10K. That can include flights, accommodation, food, anything else like that, travel between like flights and stuff. So cost is 10K. Let's say first place equals 10K. Right, in this scenario where the first place is 10K and it costs them 10K to get there, and let's say there's 16 teams competing at this event, what's the likelihood of them winning? Because all those teams are about to pay this 10K, maybe. I mean, some people will be more local, but let's just say the overall cost for 16 teams to get there could be £100,000, whereas the prize money is only 20K. Yes, the maths of esports makes complete sense. So should the organisation be taking 100% of the prize money here? Probably. Or should they be flipping this lease completely over and at least taking 75, 80% of the prize money, which might incentivize the players to push a bit further. But realistically, they're sending this team to a LAN for mutual beneficial reason to get to a major to get the digital items. So I think in this scenario, we should say for the players, maybe even 20 to 25%. And I think this might even be too high. I think this should be maybe actually a lot more than that. So the fourth one is club share. And I've seen more and more of these events popping up, which have a mixture of prize money and club share, which might say, let's say we take this 20K example of prize money. This will split 2 ways, and you might have, say, 10K club and 10K prize money. So in this scenario, we've got 10K going to the club and 10K going to prize money. I think this is a clear, great opportunity to just say the club gets the 10K and the players get the 10K. And it makes it a lot easier for contracts as well. And I think that's working beneficially together. And I like tournament organisers that are doing this. I have seen some contracts where they said they're taking some club share as well, which I just think it's It's just a bad way of doing it. I generally think this is a good thing for the industry. And when I talked about how this 80% over here, needed to come down to 50%, this is a great way of doing it. And I think hopefully we see more tournament organisers doing this. It can be bad because a lot of players will say, oh, why am I going to that event? I can only win 10K, for example, whereas the club wants to push them there because they can actually win 10K as well. So it's a really good way of doing it though, especially when salaries are involved. So all of these things are factors into what prize money should look like in a contract. And the current model of the kind of 80%, 90% sometimes going to players just really doesn't work within esports. But at the same time, it's not the worst sacrifice to give up because as we talked about earlier, it's called a cost of sale. And at least when money comes in, it goes out, not going out without it potentially coming back. If you enjoy these videos, we're doing a bunch of subjects within the esports world, esports and influencer world. Follow along, watch the videos, see what you like, see what area of the industry interests you. And then if you want a career in esports, niche down and master that one thing. That is my advice and always will be. So feel free to sub and I'll catch you in the next one.